Hi everyone, I'm a futurist, and this is an episode with a very specific focus. So if you're interested in what will happen to us as we age in the next decade, then keep watching, because by the end of this episode, you will have a good idea of what aging will look like in the 2030s, and I think you'll be quite optimistic about it. Let's dive right in. So let me start off with some basic assumptions for this episode. First of all, we are assuming that nothing catastrophic happens. So no pandemics, no climate disasters, nothing like that. We're just looking at business as usual trends and developments, and then projecting them forward into the future. Second of all, we are assuming that you live in a developed country. So basically the West, North America, Europe, Japan, maybe Australia, New Zealand. So with those two assumptions out of the way, let us start with one of the biggest changes that we can expect in the next 10 years when it comes to aging, and that is living longer. According to the World Health Organization, life expectancy in the U.S. currently sits at 78 years, but by 2030, it's projected to increase to over 80. In Japan, which currently has the world's highest life expectancy at 84, it will go up to 87 by 2030. Now, this is not necessarily going to mean more people reach these ages, but it means that on average, people will live longer, and there's a number of reasons for this. One of them is better preventative medicine. We're getting much better at identifying issues before they become critical. So for example, there's a lot of research going into using AI to identify things like cancer early on. And even for less severe things like high blood pressure or diabetes, we're getting much better at identifying those conditions much earlier on, which means we can slow down their development and people can live longer. The second reason why people will live longer is that we're getting better and better at treating the diseases that currently kill us. So for example, heart disease, strokes, some cancers, those are becoming much more treatable, meaning that people will survive them and they will live longer as a result. And finally, thirdly, there's just better public health information and access to healthcare overall. So this is particularly true in developing countries where in the past, some regions were kind of left behind. They didn't have access to the same quality of healthcare. That's changing quickly, and as a result, people are living longer in those places too. Now, this increasing life expectancy will bring with it a whole host of challenges, which we'll talk about later in the episode. But in general, it's great news, and we should celebrate the fact that we're living longer. Okay, the second thing that will change in the next decade, when it comes to aging, is the availability of new drugs that target aging itself. Now, this is not an area that has seen a lot of progress so far, but a lot of companies are working on it, and there are some potential breakthroughs coming in the next decade. So there are currently 3 main types of drugs being investigated for their potential to extend lifespan. First, there are drugs that slow down the rate of aging. An example of this is rapamycin, which is already used to prevent organ rejection after a transplant, but it's also been shown to extend lifespan in mice. Then there are drugs that delay the onset of age-related diseases. So for example, metformin, which is currently used to treat diabetes, has also been shown to extend lifespan in certain studies. And finally, there are drugs that are designed to target specific age-related cellular processes. So one example of this is a drug called dasatinib, which targets a protein called BCR-ABL that is involved in the development of some cancers. Some studies have shown that this drug can extend lifespan in certain model organisms. Now, none of these drugs have been proven to extend lifespan in humans yet, but there are clinical trials ongoing for some of them. And there are also a number of other drugs that are being investigated as well. So it's possible that by 2030, we will have a better idea of whether or not there are any safe and effective drugs that can extend lifespan in humans. It's likely that they will be expensive, and they will only be available to a small percentage of the population. But it is still an exciting area of research, with the potential to change the way we think about aging. Okay, the third big change that we can expect in the next decade when it comes to aging is the increased use of technology to monitor and manage our health. So one of the most important things we can do to maintain our health as we age is to be proactive about it, and technology can help us do that. For example, there are a lot of great apps that can help us track our medications, our fitness levels, our diet, and so on. And then there are wearable devices like smartwatches and fitness trackers that can monitor our heart rate, our sleep patterns, and other vital signs. And then there's remote patient monitoring, which allows us to receive care from a doctor without having to leave home. Now, all of these technologies are already available today. We can expect them to become more popular in the next decade, as people become more comfortable with using them, and as more doctors and hospitals adopt them. There are also some really cool new technologies that are being developed, like ingestible sensors that can monitor things like our body temperature or our blood pressure. These could be really useful for people who have difficulty accessing healthcare or for people who need to monitor their health on a regular basis. All right, so now let's talk about some of the challenges that come along with living longer. First, there's the issue of healthcare costs. As people live longer, they require more healthcare. This puts a burden on both individuals and on society as a whole. But there are a number of things that are being done to try to address this issue. One is the increased use of telemedicine, which can help to reduce the cost of providing healthcare. Another is the development of new technologies that allow us to monitor our health more closely. And then there's also the shift towards a more preventative approach to healthcare, which can help to reduce the incidence of chronic diseases in the first place. Now, the second issue is something that I've talked about a lot on this channel, and that is the issue of ageism. Ageism is the belief that people's abilities and worth are determined by their age. And this can lead to discrimination against older workers, for example, or it can lead to stereotypes and prejudices against older people in general. Now, ageism is a problem in many societies today, but it will become more of a problem as the population continues to age. Fortunately, there are a number of organizations that are working to combat ageism, and I'm hopeful that we will see progress on this issue in the coming decade. And the third challenge is the issue of loneliness. Loneliness is a major problem for older adults, and it can have serious consequences for their physical and mental health. But there are a number of things that are being done to try to address this issue. One is the development of new technologies that can help us stay connected with friends and family. Another is the growth of the senior living industry, which provides a variety of services to help older adults live independently and safely. And then finally, there's also the increased awareness of the issue of loneliness among policymakers and the general public. And this is leading to more funding and more support for initiatives that aim to combat loneliness among older adults. Now, despite these challenges, I am optimistic about the future of aging. I think that we will continue to find ways to live longer, healthier lives. And I think that we will continue to find ways to support and care for our aging population. If you want to learn more about the future of aging, check out my episode on the top 10 technologies that will change aging. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.